This is the Justin Cost Podcast.
Hey, what's up? Good to see you.
You too.
So what's been going on?
I've actually been doing a lot of video work. I'm recreating some of the. I'm going to release a solo project of some of my writings from the various bands. I'm going to include a couple of Trees tunes from other bands as well. These songs are laying there on the shelf. They're not really doing much, so I co-wrote and produced most of these. So I decided to release another version of them with me actually singing them.
Oh, you singing them?
Yeah, should be interesting.
No, that's great. I've said a couple of times that to people that even on this podcast that your songs are never complete. You can always rework them. You can always change them, do an acoustic cover. They're yours to mess with, right?
That's right. And musically, I've been a little bored lately, so I said, you know what the heck, I'm going to do this. Now, a lot of them, my income has been video work, believe it or not.
Okay. Well, that's a big demand nowadays.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of editing for some couple newsreel podcasts, a couple of YouTube channels.
Are you still working with iHeartMedia? You still do iHeartMedia?
No, I'm no longer with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw, we talked about that, and I should have clarified. I left them when I came to Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, I should introduce you here. Guys, this is Dole Shaffer, ICB instructor, former ICB instructor, and used to work for iHeartMedia, as you know, as we discussed, and also music producer, artist, a guy that does it all.
I try.
Well, so what are you listening to right now? I know that you are constantly tapped into music and wanting to hear new things and learn yourself.
I've been so busy with this video stuff, I haven't done a lot of listening. I've done a lot of creating for like background music, that kind of thing, but I haven't done a whole, I don't listen to radio anymore because it's the same thing all the time.
It is.
So,
it is.
But, if something sparks my interest or a new artist or, somebody who is, doing a new project that I'm a big fan of or whatever, I'm not saying I've closed my ears to listening to new music. I'm just saying I don't do it a whole lot.
I don't either. I when I do, I'm going more towards jazz.
Right.
I've been traveling towards that sector of things. I'm obviously a drummer, so I'm getting more into bored of the rock and funk type drumming. Jazz drumming is off the wall, off the chain, as the young ones would say. I'm really tapped into like Art Blakey, just how quick and rhythmic that he can be, and I don't know, I love it. But so you're doing old songs. Are you doing any Scram tunes?
No, I'm leaving Scram alone.
Okay.
Simply because there's not a whole lot on that album that impresses me.
Okay.
I hate to sound negative about my first release, but we were young and we just jumped in there and did it real quick. The writing process and the recording in that album was all done within 1 year.
Okay.
So we wrote the songs in 2 days. We had a song, practice, and was ready to perform it. Another one. So we'd bring our ideas to practice, and then we would create right there, actually, in our practices. And then, in less than a year, that whole project was created and recorded and released. So there's not really a whole lot on there. There may be one song that I would redo, and it's probably one of the more mellower ones, which Scram didn't do a whole lot of mellow. My two songs on there, my two personal songs that I wrote, are heavier. And they're more of screamer songs. And I'm not a screamer, so I don't really want to do that. And I am going to redo at least one of the No Reason tunes, which is the band after Scram.
Okay.
That was an EP. There was only 6 recordings, or 7 songs on that album. And then I'm redoing, two from the Trees album, and then one that's on the Trees album that I wrote before I even met Maddie and the guys.
You're talking about Inside You, right?
Yes. Actually, As you can see, I got pulled up here on my computer, doing a little editing and mixing now with it.
You may not have seen it, but my first podcast for the season I'm shooting for right now, I play Inside You. That's one of my favorites. But I'm trying to do like a little bit of a radio show. I'm not just interviewing, talking to people. I want to start practicing what I preach, which is try to spread music and local music and get different things heard. You mentioned this already in our talk just now, that radio plays the same music. It drives me crazy. I even wrote my own song called Sick of the Radio on my last album, Volume 6, and I'm just tired of it. I was listening to the radio just recently with the kids in the car, just trying to see if I can discover something new that I liked, and it was either something I've already heard or something new that was just trash, honestly. So
you're right. I mean, there's really not. Matter of fact, I was driving the other day, and they played a song, and a couple of songs played. They played a commercial, and they went back and played the same song that they had played just for the commercial. It wasn't even 5 songs between them. And I worked in radio for I worked in radio for 9 years in Dayton. With TV and all, there's 8 stations actually there with that particular location, and rarely do the DJs play it live. Okay, I mean I even had my own show. I would go in. My show was Saturday mornings, and I would go in Friday night, dump in the songs, program my show, do my voiceovers, and go home. And the computer plays it.
Right.
I mean, the only live radio that I witnessed working there, they did the morning chill on Mix 107.7. That's live. And then B-Man, which is no longer with him, sadly, did his show, the afternoon drive show. And then I can't think of the other guy, Sean somebody, he also did his show, live during drive time. So drive time and that one morning show is the only thing that was really live. Everything else is all, you listen to the radio in the evening, there's nobody in the building.
Yeah.
So, that takes a lot away from it. That contact with the audience, making phone calls and contests and that kind of stuff is something, not only the morning people do it, there's also people in the evening that like that kind of stuff as well. Mm-hmm. Plus, the commercialization, we weren't allowed to play what we wanted to play.
Yeah. That's gotten worse and worse, I think, over the years. It's Clear Channel, correct?
Yeah.
That's the issue.
They bought out, or Clear Channel came in and bought out a bunch of the radio stations, combined them, and then their name, which was a big promotional thing to promote the radio stations, because Clear Channel had kind of a bad rap. So they changed the name to iHeart and did a big promotional thing about iHeart Radio. Of course, they became digitized and all that as well. But they were the same old, still Clear Channel.
Now, when I was an instructor, I played a documentary video that goes over this pretty extensively, and they talk about how the lobbyists pay big money, and I've got books in the amounts of where it says in the book talking about the music industry in this issue of upwards to $600,000 or more just to get a group installed in the regular radio play when it comes to whatever radio station that it caters to, of course, pop or rock or whatever it is, rap, country.
It's nowhere near what it was. Not when I was growing up, anyway.
So that limits everybody, of course, and blocks people out. It's like George Carlin always says, it's a club and you're not in it. And so that's something I'm always contesting and battling with. And I went to ICB, obviously, and had this issue. Went to Full Sail, talked to instructors about this issue, and it's not getting resolved. It's getting worse. Nobody can do anything about it. What's the answer? How do we get local artists, unsigned artists, exposure? How does that work?
It's become an individual thing. It's all about networking.
Yeah,
that's what it is. I mean, obviously, back in the day, it was about connecting with people who you hung around with, because we didn't have this kind of power. You had to do it physically because there was no internet. But now, I call it becoming lazy. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they're doing now. They're sitting at their desk, creating their music. I mean, I make a living sitting here at my desk and I don't move, which is okay. As far as music, that's something that's a live thing. That's especially with promoting. There's nothing better than doing live shows to promote your music, because you're not reaching. You're not reaching as many people unless you're connected to them as far as the internet is concerned. Now you can pay and get on these sites that would promise to promote you exactly or whatever, but they don't care.
It's the social media ad game. You've got to pay to get played, right? And that sometimes is the way it goes on the outside of the internet spectrum. But then with the internet, the problem, and I discussed this with Sarah, my wife, it seems like you get to a certain limit where people can see your posts, and then they shut you out until it's an algorithm. And a lot of people are hip and aware to this, but that's how you get shut out on that spectrum. So you've got the radio doing it on one end, you've got social media doing it on the other end, so they're basically just saying you need to go out and play live and bust your ass, and then pay us if you want more people to hear what you have to offer.
And the sad thing too is there's now rarely a physical form of this music to buy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, albums and CDs or cassettes or whatever. At least you had a physical item you could sell to somebody.
Yeah.
That doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, it's there, but not a lot of people are buying them. So.
And you can hand out a digital download card, and you can give it to them for somebody for free, and that's not a guarantee unless they pay the money to buy it. Then they feel like they definitely have to go and take a listen. But if it's for free, they could toss that in the trash. You just never know. That's the consumer that we deal with nowadays, and saturation doesn't help that. All this stuff is really fascinating to me. I'm in the process of forming a documentary with these podcasts and diving deeper in other avenues, but it's a great subject. I should mention this because this is really important. The last time I talked to you, you had one of the greatest messages so far that I've ever heard. With this issue, and it's don't worry about any of it and just enjoy writing, recording, playing music, and if you put a smile on somebody's face, then you've done your job.
Well, that's the true meaning behind art, any form of art, I believe. Obviously, there's skill. You know as well as I do, we worked hard to become to the level of skill that we're at. But when I was a kid, I never said, hey, I'm going to do this and get rich. I did it because it was my passion. I did it because it's something I loved. I have spent probably just as many hours in the studio for free as I have being paid, just to learn. I mean, it could have resulted in my first separation of my first love, but I'd go to work, I'd get off work, I'd go to the studio. I was in the studio at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes sleeping in the studio, getting up and taking what you call a whore bath, going back to work the next day.
Right. Well,
and I've done that 1,000 times easily, because it's, then I would listen to these recordings while I was at work and while I'm driving, analyzing, trying to figure out what either I did wrong or what I thought was, pretty unique.
It's trial and error for sure.
Well, I'm a hands-on learner. When I also was a student at ICB, and Mick hired me in the third semester and asked me to create a class that linked maintenance to, you took the class, teaching you how to solder, et cetera, understanding signal flow on the technical side of things.
Dealing with analog tape, all those things, yeah.
Right, yeah, I even got you in a little bit of analog too. And then at graduation, he hired me to run a department. I never saw that coming. I took the course, and I have to be honest, all due respect to my teachers, I was a little bored. The beauty of it is, though, is when I was teaching, that's when Pro Tools was introduced.
Right.
And I went to Mick. I said, Mick, I don't know anything about this. I can't teach these guys. So he sent me to Nashville and got me certified. I spent 2 weeks down there, 8-hour days, learning this stuff from the ground up in the very beginning. If you quizzed me on that stuff, all the technical stuff, I don't remember all that stuff. Put me in front of the screen, I'll show you how it works.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what I want, And it's a hands-on thing. When I was teaching, standing in front of a class trying to explain stuff is not the way to teach. You throw them in and see if they can swim. That's basically what you do.
Yeah. That's the quickest way that you can learn, for sure. Because when you watch somebody do it, you're not retaining it as well as you should. I know that as an instructor myself. And Pro Tools is a beast, though. I'm using Logic Pro, and I am frustrated with it anymore. I've used it for years. It's probably 10 years I've used it, and I would love to go back to Pro Tools. The problem with Pro Tools is just, expensive licensing and...
yeah, that's screwed up the way they did that, because when I first started using it, you just bought the software, you put it on your computer, and you get, paid for it, it's yours.
Right.
I've paid for Pro Tools twice, buying it, and now I'm subscribed, so I'm paying them every month now.
Okay.
To be.
It's probably what I'll end up doing.
Yeah, I think it's like $40 or maybe $50 a month or something like that.
Okay.
And it's the same way with Adobe, because I'm using Adobe Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
I've got After Effects and Adobe Photoshop I use as well for my video editing. They're all $20 a piece, so that's, no, I'm sorry. Photoshop's only $10, so
okay.
It's like another $50 a month for those 3 programs.
Wow.
And I have them, Adobe Premiere is the actual video editing suite.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can't do a whole lot of effects in there, so you got to get the After Effects to do all the effects.
Okay,
and
right.
Then, of course, Photoshop, for any kind of, stills or anything you might be using. Plus, I restore photos as well, so I do that as part of my income right now. So,
where did you learn the video stuff, Dole?
Well, I have to say, I guess hands-on. YouTube.
Oh. Yeah.
University of YouTube.
Yeah, right.
When I learned at ICB, I took the video course there as well. What I learned at ICB was all the camera stuff. More than back then it was linear editing. You didn't have to, you couldn't do it this way because they didn't have the digital programs when I went to school there. So there was no digital editing suites to edit out of. So most of my knowledge was turned more toward the camera technicalities versus the actual. There was the green screen and all that stuff they taught us. Now, I've done a lot of green screen for one of my clients that I've done a lot of music for. I've done a bunch of I think like 40 videos for this guy. And we've done some green screen. He's in North Carolina. He gets in front of a green screen, gives me a scene. I've done some scenes in front of it. There's a drummer in the other part of North Carolina. He sits in front of a green screen, and I edit it all in to make it look like we're all together.
Wow.
So I got a lot of green screen experience as well. But when I first started getting into video, as far as a personal passion, I think Final Cut Pro was the first program I was using, first digital program I was using. And it's very limited versus the Adobe program, the Adobe Premiere. So I just tightened up a little bit and signed up, and I'm now using all the Adobe software.
Hey, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, but my knowledge comes from if I'm wanting to do something in video, I can't figure out how to do it. I go to YouTube, I search it, and well, behold, there's how you do it. So
yeah,
I've actually taught myself trial and error in watching videos.
Well, that's good. I mean, a lot of people would like to hear that because we're in a world now that everybody wants to try new things and they're scared to, and obviously video, audio, that stuff is exciting to people. Now that with the internet and TikTok, as famous as it is, people want to do videos, they want to do them well. That's good. Hey, with this documentary I'm working on, I've got a question I want to ask everybody. I think you're a great person to ask. What do you say about people that are artists feeling less than just because they're artists? And obviously I'm trying to reference the starving artist, mindset here. What's your thoughts on? What's your thoughts on feeling less than as an artist? It's kind of it's not the best way to put the question, but I just want to get to the point when it comes to asking it. Yeah.
saying less than?
Less than, yes, less than.
Unappreciated type?
Unappreciated, feeling like maybe you have less of a purpose compared to somebody that's a police officer or a firefighter or somebody that really does something for society to save somebody, protect somebody, doctor. We're all equals in that, aren't we? When we're talking about artists.
Well, I would say, the artist plays a very important part of, in all sides. A very important part of. Just imagine not having it. Yeah. Just imagine what life would be without it. So as far as less than or less important, obviously our police and our medics and all these people who are out there serving and protecting the nation are a very important value, obviously.
Yeah.
But as far as human beings, I don't think anybody has less value than anybody else. As far as careers, if you're measuring your career on your pocket, then you're in it for the wrong business. Mm-hmm. And they're wrong for the wrong reasons. I would rather be making money producing somebody else's music versus selling my own than serving tables or whatever. So I'm just saying.
Right.
But I don't look at somebody who serves tables as anybody less than me. Whether that's their choice or they're in a situation where that's what they got to do. I'm a spiritual guy, and I don't think, in my beliefs, I don't think there's anybody that has any better value or worth less than anybody else because of who they are as a person or who they are, as, what they do as a living. So I don't know if I answered your question, but.
No, you did.
Does it bother me? Yeah, sometimes, you can see that somebody may have a little more disrespect for you than they would somebody who runs their own corporation. But that's their weakness. That's on them. That's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Well, I know you're the right person to ask this question because your perspective on it is on point for sure.
And keep this in mind.
Yeah.
You spend a lot less time thinking about somebody because are they really thinking about you? What's it matter?
Right.
What's important is what you feel about yourself.
I think the reason I bring it up is that I almost see in myself, but also other artists are this way too. This is just how we are as artists. We're like the kid that gets done with a picture, a toddler, maybe a kindergartner. They get done with their picture, they drew, and then they show it to you and say, hey, what do you think?
Right.
Do you like it? And that's every artist. That's what we do. That's our thing. That's we even just talking about it. Maybe that's the wrong approach altogether. And that's something I've learned talking to people about this having this discussion. Maybe the best thing, and this is on to your point as well. You just create and push it out and create and push it out and create and push it out and that's it. That just keep that flow going and. I guess the way that how you show people is really what the discussion is here.
Well, and if somebody says crap about my material or puts it down for whatever, it offends me probably almost as much as you would say something bad about my daughter or somebody else, because, they're kind of like your babies.
They are.
Obviously, my daughter's much more important to me, but I'm just saying, I've been hurt from comments from people who I had high respect for.
Okay.
But I didn't dwell on that. I didn't spend any time, I let it go and said, oh, well, they don't get it, and move forward.
Sometimes that happens to me, and I ask myself, and maybe beat myself up about it a little bit too much, but maybe they're right. Maybe my approach isn't the way it should be. Maybe I should, be more edgy, or maybe I shouldn't be as poppy sounding, or maybe I should make my voice sound maybe different in this way, or whatever it is. But
creating much better voices hearing. So I listen to opinions, and sometimes I use them constructively. I mean, that I have changed things because somebody made a comment or said something. I'm not saying that I do this with every song or everything I do, but
Sure.
For instance, one of the songs I'm redoing, somebody made the comment about the intro being so long on Inside You. Well, it is. It's almost a minute and whatever. It's it's a very long intro. In the commercial sense,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to get. You get people's attention span is very short.
Nowadays, it
So
is
if you
very short. Yes.
If you don't grab them quickly, you're going to lose them.
Right.
So I did it out a little bit at the beginning, which is nothing, basically just a little bit of classical guitar solo I did at the beginning. There's classical guitar going through it, underlining, all the way through the song. So
Sure.
I didn't need this big long intro of this classical solo, so I cut that down. So we get to the lyrics quicker. That's probably the only song that I'll edit and, change in any form. But now I love the intro, don't get me wrong. And released on an album, I would leave it there.
Sure, you have that version, You've
Right.
done it. You've done it that way. You can do it another way and twist it. That's what I plan on doing with a lot of my work that I've done. It's so funny though when people think about their opinion on that guitar. You've got a listener who likes to hear the instruments. You've got a listener who likes to hear the vocals. If they don't hear those vocals come in a certain time, they're thinking, "What's this song about? Like, what are you
Right.
trying to do here for me?" And
you don't want to lose them in the beginning.
Right.
At least try to get them to the chorus before you lose them.
sure, but there's also the song does write itself too, and that was your initial. I mean, that song is whole, but it can be summed up in a different way, in a different version, and I love that you did that. That's cool.
And the thing is the song was originally written by a good friend of mine and myself at ICB one weekend when we were just bored sitting around, playing around with different instruments. I had just bought a mandolin, so I wanted to come up with something that I could play a mandolin in. So we actually wrote that song in one night. Gary Nickel was the co-writer on that song. He's a drummer that also played with the guys in Scram, before Scram, actually.
Okay.
Him and I wrote that song. Him and I have written at least, I'd say 150 songs together.
Wow.
I've got here in my, I got a tape bin over here with all the high 8 tapes that I recorded. We recorded all of it on high 8 before Pro Tools. There's probably 55, 60 songs just on those tapes. And then I've got some analog reels, some 24-track analog reels that we recorded a bunch of tunes on. So
Wow.
we did a bunch of songs. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's a multi-instrumentalist like I am. He played his main instrument being drums.
Okay.
He played guitar as well. So, we'd sit around and work out arrangements together. At the time, the original voice on Inside You is him.
Right.
At the time, he was pretty much singing most of it because I never really considered myself a singer. So I let him sing most of it. And there's a couple other singers came in. Actually, the singer from No Reason, Rob Myers, actually sang on 4 or 5 of them. But I don't know. If I ever get those, in a form to where I can actually mix them down, I'd like to release some of that stuff too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Pull it out of the vault, Dole. Pull it out of the vault.
Couldn't believe how much stuff I've got that's unreleased that I've not finished. Well, it's actually recorded, but it hasn't been mixed and et cetera, et cetera.
I have 2 albums after. I'm working on Volume 7. I've got Volume 8 and 9 on the back burner, just sitting there waiting to be, some parts re-recorded, mixed, mastered, but the songs are intact. So I know what you mean, but I don't like that. I'm wanting them to be gone. I want to move on. I don't want to have a lot of leftovers. There always will be leftovers, but I want to start doing things fresh and different.
I was looking at the Trees files. There's 5 or 6 songs that weren't released.
Oh, wow.
I had forgotten about them, but
You do? You forget them.
Yeah, and when I went into the files to pull out the ones I wanted to redo, I found those. I said, wow, I forgot about those songs. But I think that's 4 or 5 of them, I think.
With Inside You, I made the comment on the podcast.
Quick,
Yeah.
talking about Trees here, that thing you got behind you there.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed You ever noticed a little zebra over there peeking at you?
On this side right here?
It'd be to your right.
My right? So, right here? Right.
He's right over in the corner, right there in the middle. Peeking around the corner at the edge of you.
Okay, yeah.
There's a little zebra there.
I remember when you showed me this artwork, I was blown away by it. We were at a church, and I think you and, it wasn't Matt, must have been Brian, I believe. Bass player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brian Campbell.
Yeah. So, yeah, Inside of You is just a song I constantly will listen to I listen to it probably at least a dozen times a year. And I always get a good sense of positivity, of course. That's what the song is about. And anytime I'm down, man, that's a great song to listen to. If you're not feeling good about yourself, that one will pick you up pretty instantly. So good job on that one.
And it's true lyrics, too. I mean, the beauty we have to share to the world has to come from within. And through the turmoil and the pressures of life, et cetera, trying to keep the bills paid and everything, sometimes we lose that connection. We're not able to pull that out. And that's what creates our slumps. That's what, I have to be honest with you. I haven't written a song in a while. Actually sitting down and I've got ideas I've jotted down. Mm-hmm. I've got musical things I've put together, but I haven't sat down and constructed a complete song in a while. I have done a few things that I guess you would consider covers, just for the fun of it. And I've also done a lot of videos and music for this other client that I had in North Carolina. Hmm. He's actually kept me busy over the past 10 years. He's kept me busy a lot. But he's pretty much ran dry too. He's pretty much out of songs there, so he's not rewriting lyrics. What he does is, believe this or not, he's got a little Casio keyboard and a cassette recorder because he has no technical knowledge whatsoever. He sits down and comes up with a little arrangement with the little, push the note, it plays your rhythm and everything for you.
Right.
And he knows how to change keys and chords. And he'll record this, and then he'll write a lyric to that thing, and that's how he gets to me. So I got to listen to it, analyze the lyrics first, and decide what kind of music would go good with his story.
Yeah.
I create his music and bring him in to sing. And we were doing one song a week when I lived in North Carolina for a while. We did a song a week, and he had no problem coming in and handing me another cassette. And obviously, I have no problem. Now, obviously, I didn't use real drums, but I did use a real drummer. Mm-hmm. Had him triggering with. He had his own Roland electronic kick. I forget which model it was, but
sure, yeah.
I would just do the MIDI, and then I would go in and create the drum sounds I want from his MIDI tracks. He knows this. I'd also go in and reconstruct some of his drum fills and that kind of stuff too, because he was kind of a common guy. All of his fills are pretty much the same thing. So I'd go in and play with that a little bit too. But for the most part, he did the drums, and then I would cover all the other instruments.
Yeah, it's easy for a drummer to continue to play the same fills every once in a while. That can be tough. I've been through that too, where you're just like, what's that?
I mean, I've done a solo and said, nah, man, it sounds too much like this solo. Yeah, there's too much Jimmy Page in that one, or I love tapping, but if you get overkill with tapping, and then you're stealing Eddie Van Halen style. So it's
right.
I incorporated enough of it just to colorize the music of the solos a little bit, but no eruptions in my songs.
Well, you can beat yourself against the wall with mixing, mastering, and then you've got that to contend with. That's got to be tough when it comes to laying guitar parts down and being real choosy with your parts. I try to block that out when I'm playing. I try not to think about it too much. I always keep my stuff weird enough that it doesn't really touch too many other people. You've worked on my songs before. You know where I come from. A lot of times people are like, "Man, I'm surprised that's you." But the way I write music is just letting it be what it is. And then there's times where I'm saying, "Oh my gosh, I got to sound like a female to do this singing part because that's the only thing that's going to work there." And that's why a lot of my stuff sounds the way it does. Is because I'm playing so many different roles, and I'm not a singer either, so I kind of fake my way through it. But at the end of the day, they're songs. And, they need to be what they are. So,
right.
I have a lot of fun doing it,
as far as walking away from a song, I don't think you ever do. But my buddy, my close friend, Phil Mahaffey, he owns Cybertechnics in Dayton.
Shout out to
he goes, when it feels good, stop. And we've done a lot of work together, and he's still old school. He finally got Pro Tools in there. Mm-hmm. Just here recently, within the last 6 months or so, or maybe a year. But he's old school, and he still does everything old school. The only reason he got Pro Tools was because somebody out of LA hired him to do some mixes for them. So they actually provided Pro Tools for him.
Wow.
Because he has that reputation. He's well known for the funk music in Dayton. He's one of the pioneers of the funk scene in Dayton. And he goes unrecognized for that, which is sad because Phil is a big part of the Dayton music scene. Has been. Well, I don't know when he opened his studio. I think he started in 1968 or something, maybe even before that. And you've been to his studio.
Oh yeah.
You've seen that gear. That's real.
Yeah, I've recorded in there.
Most of it's vintage and original.
Right.
He's got microphones in there that cost as much as cars do.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just the Dayton area. Guided by Voices are well known across the country, across the world, and he's worked with them many times. And I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm seeing Guided by Voices T-shirts and records, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of Phil's groups here. So it is really, really cool. It's neat.
I think he's recorded every one of their albums.
It wouldn't surprise me because I know that that guy is in and out of there.
Right. He's from the Dayton area.
Right.
I can't think of his name right now, but if I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong because I don't know the history of the Voice, but I do know Phil has done at least most of their albums. Well, and he loves that console there. What is his name? Well, whatever. He loves that console. He loves the fatness of that console. That's why he refuses the recording place else.
One of the first times I got mastering done in there, I went home and I put it in the stereo. It was a CD, of course, and I just listened to it. It was like one song that we had worked on, and I just listened to it over and over and over again, and I was like, wow, this is what mastering is. And, I was younger in my career, and you were in that session when they were mastering. He was mastering some cover band stuff that my dad and I were working on, and you were like, man, this is one of the cleanest recordings I've ever heard come out of Studio A, which I really appreciated. But then just to hear what Phil did to it and the fatness that you talk about, it blew me away. I wasn't listening to the song over to hear how great I was or how great the song was or the recording. I was just listening to what he did and what that console did. It was like magic and undescribable. I still couldn't describe exactly what he did, but yeah, I understood mastering after that for sure.
It's the difference between driving a Ford truck and a Mack truck. I mean, yeah. That's basically what ICB has is good, decent equipment. Yes. What Phil has is top rated. He has what the industry, state of the art. Even though it's old, they still use these microphones. They still use some of these preamps he's got.
Yeah, that board has the certain type of preamp there that's just mathematically perfect the way that it works. Yeah.
Board unique. It's one of a kind. That board was custom built for Sigma Studios. That's not a store bought studio.
I think John Lennon recorded on that exact board, I believe.
If you did the history on that board, you'd be surprised. Michael Jackson's been on it. There's been some big names that recorded on that console. Sigma Studio was the East Coast sound. That's where a lot of the East Coast music was recorded, versus coming from L.A. or and New York. But Sigma Studios was in Pennsylvania, I believe, and they no, Philadelphia. My bad. Yeah, Philadelphia. A lot of big names went through that studio. So before Phil bought that studio, I think he bought it in 71 or 72. I don't remember. But before he bought it, it was already legendary. Now, we've discussed it before. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wants it. But, Phil don't want to give up. He doesn't want to quit. He's like, I think he's 78 years old now. And we're going to find him laying across that console.
No. Oh, man.
Anytime I go home, we get together. We don't go in there for the purpose of creating or doing any work. We just do it for fun. We just do jams or whatever.
Right.
And those will last 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
I'd like to get my hands on some of those recordings.
He's got them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's got every single thing we've recorded in there. I may have some of them around here, because most of them are just jams with just, there's no structure or anything, 3-chord progression blues thing or whatever. We never sit down and really constructed songs per se, but we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Just get a little happy and have a little fun was all we really cared about doing.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's therapeutic, man. You got to do that. That's good for him too, because he lives there. I mean, that's his place. But I know that his drums are they're really great. I've played on there, and his cymbals are like tuned perfectly. So everything that he has in there is really great.
Yeah. He has made it his life. This is something he done his whole life, and he is probably one of the most intelligent people I know too. I mean, he designed and built this chopper from scratch, welding his own frame and everything. And I don't know. He's done a lot of other things that you would never even think. Basically, out of boredom. He told me. I said, why? Because he sunk a lot of money in this chopper he built, and it's a really sharp bike. If you ever get a chance, have him show it to you.
Yeah.
But he did it from scratch.
Wow.
Who builds a motorcycle from scratch?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the one thing that with him is that he's kind of tapped into, like you said, L.A. and when I would bring students to his studio, he brought up the fact that the industry is tough. It's hard out there. He's told me he's had it hard sometimes where there's times where there's not much going on, and that's the music industry for you. But don't you think that people get shut out and there as well too when it comes to equipment and being able to find a studio like his, because that's separating you as well from the artists and the bands that are on the radio, right? I mean, this goes back into the same conversation about how being an unsigned artist or an artist that doesn't have a whole lot of money can't really get to the big players.
Right, and the sad thing is with him being the analog studio he is, the generations now don't get it. They don't understand they don't hear, to be honest with you. Their ears aren't trained enough to hear the difference between that studio than doing a digital recording, strictly in their bedroom or whatever.
Right. So why does it matter then, right? To them, what's the point,
I have to say that. And, Phil has he's got a fortune there in gear. And he could sell that and retire very comfortably.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about it. He's talked about it. He's asked me to help him sell it from time to time. I get somebody biting. He don't want to sell. He backs out. He changes his mind. So he really don't want to give it up.
Yeah, it's his life.
But like you said, I'm a real close friend of his, and I've seen his struggle, and I've seen him really in tight spots. And I've seen him take sessions he wouldn't dare, people he wouldn't even want in his studio.
Yeah.
It's forced to keep the lights on. So,
sure.
And that's sad, because there was a day where he could not shut the doors. He was so busy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that when I didn't want to bring it up, but one of the things that I remember as an instructor is I had a student ask me, "Hey, I want to open up a recording studio. What do you think about that?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't do it." And I got in trouble for that, and I rightfully so, because really I didn't create a good enough dialogue in that moment of saying, well, this is what goes into it. My whole point to them was, you're still a student. I wouldn't get into it yet until you've gained some more knowledge and more experience. And that was the right thing, but I still didn't go far enough. And the point is that you have to do a lot of research. You have to be doing it before you even open up a studio, technically, just so you can gain some artists that constantly want to go back to you and that trust you. And even then, that can be tricky, because dealing with artists at times is really difficult.
I've never, other than maybe my personal little studio suite type situation, I've never, if I opened up a studio, I would do a lot more than just offering recording. Obviously, I would include the video knowledge. And I would also consider like instructional classes, teaching people how to do also video, also with the music and video.
Yeah.
That would be my avenue if I tried to open a studio. But I would, obviously I'd be there for commercial reason, as far as artists want to come into the studio and record, being recorded by a professional. That would be my first choice for the reason of opening the studio. But as far as trying to open a recording studio and operate it as they did, I've managed a lot of studios, and back in my day, they were very busy studios, and especially the Columbus studios I worked in. But today is not something that I would consider opening. I wouldn't even consider opening a commercial studio just for the purpose of recording music.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You got to be, widen your horizons if you want to be in the creative world. As you know, if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to learn how to do it. The CD cover behind you, that's my first time ever creating a CD cover. So I went through step by step through Photoshop. It was done in Photoshop. Step by step, learning the process of how to using the different tools, trying to get the roundness out of the trees and stuff. All the trees and everything was on there. None of that stuff was copy and pasted. Let me reframe or restate that. I went in and copied sketches of trees, and then I put the leaves on. Those leaves are individually drawn in there.
Wow.
Trees, I created the trees and their branches and stuff, and created around this realistic look. All that stuff is stuff that I, put in there, and it may have been a copy of some kind of sketch. The mountain in the background was not that color, or was not. It was a black and white picture. I colorized it.
Wow.
And the hands you see are actually my hands that I took pictures of, and then blended them in. And the whole concept was you're reaching. Trees it was all about back to roots. You're trying to reach to get back to what your original core of who you really are.
Sure.
I mean, there was a concept behind that album that Maddie and I had just decided to go with, and that album cover depicts that. It shows what we were trying to say. Now, obviously, unless that's explained to somebody, they'd never know that.
Sure.
It's just, somebody got a bunch of trees with the hands coming out of the sky. No, there's a lot of meaning in that album cover, and there's a hell of a lot of work in that album cover.
Yeah, we don't, as artists, explain stuff like that enough and tell the story like we should. And you felt that way because you were very passionate, and you truly believed what you were working on mattered. And it still does today. And
yeah, it still matters. That's one of my proudest pieces of work. Not just the cover, that whole project.
I believe it.
But like I was getting ready to say when I brought up the cover was, I also can offer lessons or teaching people doing that kind of stuff too. So I I grew up a poor kid, so I had to figure out how to do this part of it, this part of it, this part of it. All these different elements that come and create to the point where you're releasing an actual physical or audio or video or whatever. I had to learn how to do that on my own, or obviously, like I said, YouTube. The only formal training I've had in my life was ICB, and I went in already as an engineer. I already had 15 years under my belt as an engineer. I went to the school. The only reason I went to the school is because I was bored and wanted a piece of paper that said I actually knew how to do this.
Yeah.
Hoping that would open some doors, and I'll do respect to ICB. Your work is what opens the doors.
Sure. Right.
Obviously, what they teach and the skills you get from that is very important, but the doors are opened by your creativity.
I think it also takes people like you, Dole. I think it takes instructors that have a passion for it, that can push that passion onto other people, maybe awaken them a little bit more, which you did for me. I know I did that to others for ICB, and making the relationships that I made with students and people have impacted my life still to this day. So I mean, just because of that, your story is and even Phil's story are really, really great ones that should be told. And you guys have done it the right way and are continuing to do it the right way. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we should end it there. Honestly, I mean that's a great spot to end. But Dole, thank you for talking with me, and everything that you share is really needed. I still enjoy hearing it and learn from it to this day.
Well, and thank you for having me. And just so you know, of all of my graduates, you're the one of them that I'm most proud of.
Well, thank you.
You're doing it, and that makes a difference. A lot of students went through that course through me. I was there 11 years, taught a lot of people, and there's only a handful of them that are actually out there doing something about it. And you're doing very impressive work, and I admire what you're doing, and I carry a lot of pride that you're one of my graduates.
Well, thank you. Right back at you, man. And eventually, we'll continue to work together, hopefully. You're living in Florida now, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in St. Petersburg.
Okay. Well, cool. If I'm ever down by that way, I'll definitely reach out to you. If you're up in Dayton, please get a hold of me, and then we'll have one of these talks again for sure in the future.
Okay, and if you ever need any work from me too as well, we can always send stuff via Google Drives or whatever, how it's done today.
Absolutely. Still looking to do music videos with people. Anybody that wants to reach out to Dole for work, you can reach out to me or to Dole, Facebook, anything like that. You can message me, let me know.
Google me because I'm all over the place.
Dole Shaffer, Shaffer is how he spells his last name. Thank you, Dole. I appreciate it. Enjoy your evening.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.